Okay, let me welcome Ines before we get started. She just arrived. Welcome, Ines. I will mute you. So you muted, so stay like that. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you here this evening with me in Tulia Talks and guests. And I have the pleasure to have the dear Naomi Isaacs with us tonight talking about charisma. What is charisma? Is charisma a God-given gift? But before we get diving into the interview with Naomi, let me just give you a brief introduction of Naomi. At age 77, Naomi looks back on a life which was dealt her blows to stomach and delivered enriching rewards. Growing up in the post-war London, her Jewish lineage gave her a first awareness of ancestry as a measure of status. Today, after over 50 years in Germany, 16 years in corporate employment, and over 35 years as a jazz singer, traveling the world and experiencing widely varying cultures, she dedicates her time to coaching and mentoring all who wish to discover their core gifts and grow their charisma. Her tools, indeed her whole approach to life, are unconventional. Where personal growth is concerned, she favors the fast lane. That's my lady. So welcome tonight, Naomi Isaacs, with the topic of charisma. Naomi.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Tulia. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I will start with a very basic question, maybe basic, but I believe it's a profound question. What is charisma?
For many years, I thought it was what people usually think of, this magnetic personality that certain people have, certain politicians, certain stage personalities, until I started researching further and found out that the original meaning from the Greek, charisma, it does mean the God-given gift, but it doesn't mean only that type of gift which is extroverted and creates this wonderful personality. It's also the inner gift which might not be visible until you start looking for it. And that was the part, that was where I really got interested, because of course I believed, like most people nowadays, that anybody who wants to go on stage or make a presentation in their company can be helped if they have some charisma. But I couldn't quite come to terms with the fact that there was this belief, either you have it or you don't. And that those who don't have it, quote unquote, somehow that's it. That's the end of their search. They can't have it. I couldn't come to terms with that. So that's where I started looking further.
Okay, so you're saying to us that charisma is a God-given gift. However, as God is generous, it is given to everybody. Our job is to discover, to unveil our charisma gift. Is that what you're saying to us?
I would say that absolutely. But if I say charisma is a God-given gift, that is the original meaning of the word. And to me, charisma is your God-given gift. God-given, you could also put that in quotes for those people who are not religious particularly. You could say your core gift, that thing that you brought into the world with you, which you knew, which you can do, but never had to learn. There are things which you do automatically, and for you, they're maybe not even important because they're so automatic. And that might just be also your special gift. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Now, it was a mistake here. saying that is a gift, is an inner talent, or or inner purpose, or is something that's related to our authenticity, to what we are, and is on that line of thought. Okay, so I'm following, but what exactly makes someone more charismatic? Because from my understanding, and I believe it's the overall, the general public understanding, there are some people that are more charismatic than others. And from my perspective and my perception, they would be people that are easy to connect, people that you feel like you want to hang around with them, and even like you, seems like you trust them faster. What is a charismatic person?
I think charisma is a quality that everyone has and can grow. Those people that are already demonstrating it or showing it are usually people who found that their purpose in life, that their excitement of being alive, connects with their gift, with their talent. And when these two things are connected and they start to talk about it or practice it, they start to glow. They just simply start to glow, and that makes them very attractive, and you want to be around them. I like to make a very careful distinction between real charisma and exhibitionism, because I've seen many people on stage who consider themselves charismatic and they're doing all sorts of wild gesticulations, and to me they're not becoming attractive. They're becoming interesting, yes, but that doesn't make me want to hang around them, as you so rightly put it. And for me, that's more exhibitionism, as the Germans like to say, Selbstdarstellung. That to me is not necessarily charisma. Also, very introverted people can have masses of charisma if they're in a situation where they're comfortable and doing exactly what they want to do in communication with other people.
Mm. I read a book a while ago on that topic, and the lady who wrote this book, she had 3 lines for her definition of charisma, which was presence, power, and empathy. And a very interesting thing, and she said in those aspects, like she mentioned that the presence is very much how people perceive you. Is it the first impression? Is like the fight or flight response, like how you come across, people are going to like you immediately. You can have that naturally, but also you can work on that. Power is very much related to your social status, to how you dress, is really the power in the sense of power, what our culture sees power. But the empathy is something that you have to build, you have to grow, because she said you can have presence and empathy and not have so much power and empathy but not have so much presence, and you still can come across as a charismatic person. But if you just have presence and power, you're not charismatic at all. So empathy is the key. And could I say, based on what you just told us, that this inner voice that we have to bring out, that will then people see us authentically instead of acting, building up this presence and maybe power.
Yeah, I completely agree with every word that she says, except that my picture is a little bit larger. And I like to describe it this way. If you have a match, with one match, you can light 5 different fires. And for me, the match, the initial flame is the charisma, that's the gift. The fires are the talents. And I like to then look for your life purpose, which gives you the energy to follow your path. And that's where this type of charisma starts to grow. It's less empathy, but it's radiation more. Mm. And that depends very often on the social situation into which you were born. So for me, it's 3 levels. Empathy, one could have a long discussion about empathy. One of the things that I also do is face reading, and there are those people who have enormous trouble developing genuine empathy because it's not in their initial personality structure. For example, they're more like cats. If you compare cats and dogs, dogs are always in relationship to their masters, and they have empathy and they will follow their masters and so on and so forth. Cats like to come and go as they please. Cats come to be fed, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can stroke them. And they don't have this empathy, not normally, with their owners. Sometimes they do, and they can develop it over a long time, but it's not natural to them. And also there are people like this, but it does not mean that a cat or a cat-like person cannot have charisma. So I think it's a very complicated issue, topic. But if you need to write about it, of course you need to become clear. And I completely agree with these 3 things that she says. Just, I feel that there's a larger picture and more things to be defined in between.
Okay. And Naomi, what should one do, like a person do, if you say, okay, I would like to become more charismatic, or when someone feels like, I don't think I'm charismatic, I really want to learn about it, I want to discover this charisma that I have, that God was given to me.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to find out what you love doing, regardless of whether you get paid for it or not. Not a question of, I must be wonderful so that they pay me, but what do I just love doing? Because when people start talking about what they love doing and communicating it, you can see their eyes start to glow, you can see their faces light up, and that makes them immediately attractive, and you want to listen to them. That is one form of charisma, this glowing and lighting up. If you're not sure that you have anything in your life at the moment that you're really enthusiastic about, maybe it's time to start looking for it, because there will be something. Usually when we're small children, if we're in a situation where we can play with other children or play by ourselves without too much comment, there will be something that we always love doing. How can I say? My brother loved taking little bricks and making castles. And he's always been somebody that really enjoys structure in his life. I was a bit different. I like picking up things in the garden and pretending that they were something else. I loved my fantasy world. And that's what turns me on today, is fantasy, but not in a sense of inventing stuff, in a sense of how can I use my imagination to create new stories for myself, for my clients, and so on. So the first place to look for your God-given gift is in what you love doing today, or if you can't find that, go back to your childhood. And if you can't do that on your own, get a good friend and go for coffee with them or tea or whatever, and talk about your childhood. Compare your childhood with their childhood. Look for all the things you love doing. Help each other to find out, because your friend will watch when your eyes light up. And your friend can then say, ooh, that looks as though you were excited about that. Tell me more. It's digging down into the past to find out where it started.
Yeah, that's very much like what I believe as well. And in my trainings, I always say to my students, find your voice. And the first person who I heard saying this was Stephen Covey, and he used to say, find your voice. And your voice is what brings you in the stages of life. Doesn't matter if it's the in fact, literally stage in front of an audience, but in conversations that bring this authenticity. And it's related to when you find your purpose, you find your voice. And your voice is, you have to discover. You cannot design your voice. And probably this is going back to what you said, when people go on stage and even if they practice, they rehearse, they trying their best to do a good presentation, they are aligned, etc. But we as an audience, there somehow we feel something is not there, is not coming from inside. Is this voice that we have to look at. Yeah,
that's very interesting. And I think it's very often, I think with any craft, also using your voice is a craft. Until you have mastered the tools, it's difficult to be spontaneous. If you watch a carpenter who's been using his tools for many, many, many years, you can watch him do everything really quickly. And it's so interesting to watch a carpenter's hands working. But he's probably, if you went back to the beginning, he probably fought with these tools. And it's the same with the voice, because it's just, if you like, it's voice is sport for the vocal cords. So when you do a sport, you need to start to understand the muscles and limbering up and warming up. So I agree with you in one way particularly, that the more people use their voice, the more they find out how to use it, and it goes deeper inside them. So it's a kind of a spiral, voice and finding your voice, and voice and finding it, and going down inside and finding more. Each side feeds the other. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. Going to towards the voice here. You are a jazz singer. We're going to get there. However, I want to know what led you to charisma. Is there where you found your voice?
No, it was rather embarrassing, actually, or at least I used to find it embarrassing. People would always come up to me and say, "Oh, you have such charisma. I want some. Can you teach it to me?" And at first I thought, I don't know. I never thought about it, because if it is something that you have, you don't do it, you are it. And so it's like the nose on your face. You don't feel the nose on your face or feel your eyebrows, but everybody else can see them. And I just started trying to experiment with my pupils, and what would make you more fun to watch, more electric, more attractive, I don't know. And it all came down to authenticity. And it got closer and closer to this, to getting rid of the fear of the feeling of nakedness on the stage. I think that is key, that if you really are prepared to say, sort of, here's the zip fastener, open me up, this is who I am, oh look, I have a liver and I have lungs like you, oh, you have them too, that we are the same. If you're prepared to be naked, transparent, visible, not hide your fears, or actually don't really have any in that situation, that you can't help being, you become charismatic, because you unite people in that way.
Because you show vulnerability then. You really showing yourself. There's an expression that I love. It's like, be raw and real and naked.
Yes.
And in this line, when you're on stage, you're vulnerable, people connect with you because they feel you're honest.
Yes. And the interesting thing is, as soon as you lose your fear of it, you don't feel vulnerable. Of course, people can criticize you, but they always will. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in a cafe or whether you're on the stage. Somebody won't like the shoes you're wearing or the way you do. There will always be something about you that somebody will criticize. It's normal. We do it.
Normal. Yeah, we all do that. And I always say, in this past weekend when I was teaching my students, I said, look, there's always, when you go in front of people, there's always someone that would love you from the beginning. And they're smiling at you, nodding at you. some people are kind of in the wall there. They're waiting for you to say something to convince them that you are worth loving. And
Yes.
some others will never love you. Doesn't matter what you do. They will never really. They are there. They come to prove you wrong. So we should not even concentrate on that. But anyway, this was a sidetracked conversation. Back to our point on charisma here in Charisma on Stage, because this is our Speak Up network, and everybody here is interested on becoming better speakers and how we can use some extra techniques to improve, to become outstanding, but authentic, raw and real, authentic. I have a question for you here is, how can we, because we are talking here that charisma is everybody has, is an inner gift that we have to tap into this voice, but it is very subjective. Like, it's very difficult to visualize, to make it tangible. When you are training, when you're coaching people towards charisma, is there a methodology? Is there a process that you offer them? That, because some people, we are all different. I can, in my way, the way I am, I can easily go through subjective matters and find a solution. But I know some people, they really need instructions to be able to start moving forward and towards something. Do you have any methodology that you use with people, or is more spontaneous discovery?
I would say I have a box full of tools, but I can't always say until I see the person which tool to use first.
Okay.
If somebody wants to learn this online, I would have to probably say I don't know how to teach it online, because you can't, charisma is not a thing that you do. It's a thing that you are. And it's nearly always, to find out who you are, you need the help of somebody else. It doesn't have to be a coach. Like I said, go to coffee with a friend and get them to monitor you when you talk about your childhood and see when you light up. What I can say is that there are many different areas of expertise that can feed your fearlessness and your readiness to look inside. You can do systemic work, you can do kinesiology, you can go to face readers, you can go, if you really feel you need it, you can even go to therapy, though that's really not at all my favorite recommendation, though for certain people it's right. I know an astrologer who does a particular type of astrology, which to me is absolutely wonderful. And she has helped many people to find out what their actual gift is. My method is, when I have you in front of me, I read your face, I ask you questions that your personality dictates to me. I listen to the answers, I find out what's important to you. And what I usually look for is what I like to call your default program. The thing that you always do when you've had a bad day, when things aren't going right, where you think that will make me feel good. And that very often is connected directly to your core gift. Would an example help? I think it might help.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you if you could give us an example.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one that many people have heard me talk about. Many years ago, a girl came to one of my workshops. She had one of these rather, a face with not many striking features, the kind of person when you see her on the street, you might even not notice her too much. And she came because she said, I need more charisma because at work, they don't notice me. They only notice me when I go on holiday, because when I go on holiday, the department that I work for stops functioning. And of course, this conversation took a lot longer, and it was with the other participants. But we came to the fact in the end, she was a secretary in the back office, and she did hold everything together. When she was there, everything functioned. And we said, maybe your gift is holding everything together. Now, this is not a gift which is visible. It's a gift which becomes visible when you're not there, because then people notice the difference. But if you know that your gift is holding it together, the next time you go looking for a job, the next time you introduce yourself, you will then have the self-confidence, and that's the main thing, it's the self-confidence to say, and my great strength is, I hold your department together. You will never notice me. I'm invisible. I'm the angel in the background. You will only notice me when I'm gone. Now, what kind of a strong introduction is that? So it's not, in her case, about being visible. It's about exactly the opposite of not being visible, not making waves, not disturbing anything, making sure everything works in the background. The same talent or the same ability, core ability that photographers have. They can walk through a room and be completely invisible. And what is their charisma? It's this ability to be invisible. So it's not always about that. And for me, the work is to find out, what type of charisma do you have? Should you be really visible? Or should you be grateful for this quality of being invisible, but learn to have the self-confidence to call that a great quality? This is your charisma.
That's very interesting, Naomi, because I never thought, never crossed my mind to think about charisma, being charismatic and being invisible. That's very interesting. You made me, you were going to keep me thinking for a while. And I want to ask you one last question from me, because I want to open the floor to all the people who are here with us. They might have questions, but before I open the floor to them, my last question to you is, what is the vision and mission of the Institute of Charismology?
Charismology, for me, is the science and psychology of charisma. And together with a number of guest lecturers, teachers, we offer workshops in all areas surrounding charisma. That is face reading, that is text interpretation for presenters. How do you go on stage and present a text using your voice? It's peripheral work. And all the peripheral work that we do, some of it is me reading you and training or coaching you. Some of it is you practicing what you do and getting feedback from the group. I love it when the group gives feedback, because it helps to grow their antenna and their awareness. And you said right at the beginning, their empathy, and it teaches them also to give feedback in a really constructive and warm-hearted way. So what we teach is, and what we offer, all the peripheral things which will help you grow your awareness of yourself, your confidence in yourself, your self-confidence, and therefore also your charisma. In one particular workshop we will be offering, I haven't got a date on it yet. We also offer numerology. I have a wonderful woman coming in March to do a numerological workshop, and also color coding for fashion. I met somebody that has a very special way of doing this, not the 4 seasons that we all know so well, but a much more detailed look at not just the type of colors, but the mixed colors. She goes into an enormous amount of detail. And all I can say is, if I weren't so convinced of her, I wouldn't have made an appointment to go to her myself in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we present everything that helps people to develop various aspects of their personality. And my personal work is the deep dive into charisma and what is yours.
Awesome, that's very interesting. And I note in the colors, I think that color that you're wearing there suits you perfectly. It looks gorgeous.
Thank you.
And now I would like to open to anyone who wants to speak. Just raise your hand here. You can just show and let me know if you want to ask Naomi Any question? Someone? Anyone?
I've silenced them all.
Yeah, because they have here Veronica.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi.
Nice to
Hi.
see you.
Hi, Naomi. I'm on the train actually, traveling from Prague, where I met Naomi personally, and I'm going
Awesome.
home. And my question is there such a thing as oversharing? You know, as being too raw, too much? You know, is there a line or not?
That's very interesting. I've never had that question before. My instinctive answer at the moment is yes, but that's not the whole answer. How much you can share, want to share, I think also depends on who you're sharing with. I did meet somebody very recently. I didn't actually know who she was. I think she saw me on the street a number of times in my neighborhood and stopped me one day and said, I would like to meet you. Can we have coffee? Sure, lovely. You know, yeah.
What?
And during the coffee, I got her whole life story, and that wasn't really what I was up for on that day. So I think we can overshare. Also, particularly if we're very desperate and unhappy and we need someone to talk to, and we take the first person, and that might not be what they want at that moment. But as a question of the final bottom line, if we are prepared to share everything, we can still choose from person to person how much is appropriate.
Yeah.
That's what Gary says. Yes, it's true. I also believe it all depends on the context, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gary, you want to say anything on that, or you have a question?
Not really. I'd just like to say hi, Naomi. I don't know how to work this. I've never done one of these before, so I don't know which buttons to push.
You do very well. If you want, I can ask if you want to show yourself for us, because I think it would be just fair, because everybody
How
has
do I do
a
that?
face here. I send a request for you to turn on your video.
Wait, do it again. I hit the wrong button.
You will start your video. Let's see, Gary.
Do it again, Tulia.
I will. The second. Now, let's see if we can see you. It seems to be that you're coming live. Welcome. There he is. Very good. So do you have any question for Naomi?
Nothing that you haven't really covered.
Okay, awesome. Marcus.
I would like to say something about Gary. Gary is a wonderful jazz bass player, and we've worked together a number of times over the past, I won't say how many years. And Gary taught me something in one of my jazz workshops that I gave, which was invaluable. He said to one of the participants, when a singer walks onto the stage, we, the musicians backing her, we can tell from the way that she walks on and her body language from the back whether this is going to work out or not. And that taught me an immense amount about how much you really should be asking your musicians more, and not telling them what to do, but asking them and listening to what they say. And Gary, I was very, very grateful for that, and I remember it very, I even remember where it was.
That was amazing. Yeah, but it does make sense, huh? Because the energy that you bring in the room and the connection with the music goes beyond the notes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think Marcus wants to ask something. Marcus, and let me unmute you just a second. Oops, sorry.
I did.
Now, okay.
Naomi, when you have your students and let's say you improve somebody's charisma, it is more exposed, will this stay constantly, or do you have to redo these sessions, or do you have to remind that person every once in a while, listen, you are in that old habit again?
It's not, I can't tell somebody, you have to keep it, or I can remind them if they're sitting like this. It's just like the teacher at school. I can remind them to sit straight. But once you've learned, it isn't even learned, once you've uncovered this thing that you've been hiding for so many years, you can't hide it again unless you choose to. And there's a wonderful example of this, and that's Sophia Loren, who was able to go shopping in a supermarket without being recognized. And all she had to do, it wasn't dark glasses, all she had to do was close down. And she could choose when she wanted to be seen, when the cameras were there, oh, she was up and alive again. And otherwise she was just like that. So I think it is, that type of charisma is something that you can voluntarily switch on and off. But I don't think that you can unlearn something that you've learned. I think but you can choose not to be noticed, or not
to apply it.
Not to apply it. I'm thinking of the back office secretary. She could also come to work and say, you know what, this week you run the department. I don't want to hold everything together. I know I can do it. Doesn't cost me anything, but I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being the only one that does it, for example. So do I have to? No. You can maybe remind somebody if they're slumping when they should be standing up straight. I don't think you have to keep teaching it them. Okay. I don't think that. But yeah, when to apply it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you need to, I mean, none of my clients comes just one time and it's done.
No.
It's always a process for 5, 6, 10 sessions, varies. And I think once they've learned it, actually they enjoy applying it mostly. No, not mostly, they enjoy applying it because they also get the recognition for it then. Yeah.
So you sort of give these people an enforcement to have this positive, let's call it energy, to maintain as well. Once they're out of your 10 hours, they sort of take this along, and they have they exhibit a different, a different charisma, a different person, in the positive.
Yes, they become much more self-confident.
Yes.
And they enjoy applying it. I mean, they come to me because they want to be like that. And when they discover they can be like that, they enjoy being like that. And why would they stop? Unless, like Sophia Loren, for example, they want to be hidden. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I haven't had it before.
Ines, I want to ask something. Let me unmute you, Ines. Oh.
Hello, Ines.
Hi. I really enjoyed your interview. I have a particular question because I a couple of weeks ago when I was during an interview, I also got the feedback, are you so charismatic? Now I had no clue what they were talking about. How do you run a workshop when you say you uncover your charisma? What do you do? When you said you had different tools that you apply to the person, and it depends on the person, but what questions do you ask?
One of the first things that if it's the stage presentation in any form, one of the first things I usually do is to help them define their breathing dynamics. There are different dynamics of breathing. Some people breathe in with a lot of energy and then relax. Some people breathe out with a lot of energy and then relax. And depending on which of these two is your personal dynamic, your whole behavior on stage has to be aligned with that. Are you somebody that needs to go out to your audience and feed them as a picture, or are you somebody that needs to invite your audience onto the stage with you so that you can embrace them also energetically and not figuratively speaking, not literally. And that's one of the first things. Very often what happens is that they'll take part wonderfully, but they don't believe that they're doing the right thing when all the rest of the group says, "Ah, that was amazing." Because usually when you're amazing to begin with, you feel uncomfortable. So that's why several sessions is a really good thing to get used to. It's actually okay. I'm getting used to it. It's no longer so as uncomfortable as it used to be. That's the first place. If it's charisma not for the stage, it's usually a longish conversation about where do you come from? Why do you need the charisma? Why do you feel you're not? It's a little bit more psychological. Mm-hmm. They also can go through this process, but it's not quite so relevant, except maybe to their daily creativity curve. Or are they people that should be doing their creative work first thing in the morning or later in the afternoon, regardless of what their parents said or their teacher said, or regardless of what the success coach said, who said really successful people all get up at 4 in the morning. Get me up at 4 in the morning, I'll be dead by lunchtime and I won't be particularly successful. So I look for the type of person, the type of personality structure, and what is the purpose for which they feel they need more charisma. I might read their face, I might suggest that they go to one of my colleagues first and then come back after finding out more about their astrology. As I say, the only colleague that I have that I work with on this level is somebody who has a very special, highly advanced form of astrology. And it's not just you're this sign and therefore you're like that. Completely different. It's a whole personality excavation. These are the type of excavations that systemic work also can play an enormous part. So it depends. Ines, I don't know if that's too much information or if that's what you wanted to know. It depends very much what the client wants.
I wish I knew.
You don't know what you want? Or why?
Actually exploring what I could do and what I can actually achieve with, because I'm not 100% sure what is actually hiding inside. So it's more an interesting journey I would like to start.
Yeah.
Just exploring and seeing what yeah. Stay
online because you might get a bonus at the end, who knows?
Yeah. Yes. The conversation is great. We could go on forever here, and Naomi. And honestly, I've learned many things tonight. And one of the things for me was this invisibility as a charisma, and being invisible but still be charismatic. And of course, there's never one size fits all. But from what you told us tonight, the new thing for me as well was the fact that you're being a charismatic, even if you consider yourself a charismatic person, doesn't really mean that you're charismatic to the other person's perspective as well. There's no such thing as everybody, you're charismatic, tag, charismatic, and that works everywhere. That was the one thing that was an eye-opener for me too.
Absolutely. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad.
Yeah. So any last question? Because then I want to, Naomi has something to share with you. I will share what she can offer you if you want to continue embrace this journey to find your voice and find your charisma. Anybody has another question? Gary, Inez, Maya, Marcus? No?
I have a very short question. Hi.
Yeah, Maya.
Thank you so much. I
You're
actually
welcome.
missed the beginning. I'm actually a very serious person and I look always very serious. And every time when I deliver some presentation, or mostly on the work topics or on a conference, I get good feedback, but everybody says, oh, you are very structured, or, you know. So bottom line, I don't really think I have this very appealing charisma. So what would be the way to somehow work on that? That is my question.
Well, my first reaction is you have extremely appealing charisma. I think you're probably a little bit shy, and I think you're probably trying to be perfect. And as soon as we try to be perfect and get everything right, we cover up the spontaneity and the realness. And I can see in your face when you talk about it, you want it. I can see your eyes shining. And I'm sure you can be a lot less serious when you begin to enjoy more the situation that you're in. Now, why you're not enjoying it, that's the subject of a slightly longer conversation. But I see enormous potential. I don't know, did anybody else see those eyes shine? Or was it just...
saw.
Yeah.
I saw, and I saw that she has a beautiful smile, and this is
Absolutely.
an open door. You just need to know, now you know, use your smile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Generously. Naomi, we could stay here with your wisdom, because I don't know if you feel the same, but Naomi is kind of this woman that we look at her and then you just feel like, yes, whatever she says is really gets into us. Thank you so much. And for you here, an opportunity. Naomi is offering for 3 people, 3 individual coaching sessions of 60 minutes on any topic of personal development and relationships that you want. And for another 3 people, her book signed as a gift and delivered post-free. I will leave you her contacts, because there are also some people watching on the Facebook Live, so you have to be fast. For the first 3 ones, is you can write down now, charismology.com, and you go there, contact, charismology.com, contact, and you can put Speak Up Network, Tulia, and then she knows exactly what it is. And one thing, yes, go.
One quick word about the book. It's in German. It's a children's book for grown-ups. It has nothing to do with charisma. It's not a how to do it book, but it has to do with that type of charisma that I was talking about, the invisible kind, who you really are, the core. And it's about 12 children and some wonderful adventures. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you, everyone who came here. And we will continue this conversation with another guests in the following weeks. And do please contact Naomi. She'll be happy to support you, to help you. And you can get back to me for anything you need. And let's keep growing. My motto for this year is, let's keep growing together.
Wonderful.
Have a good evening, and smile and bring that inner voice, because you all have that God-given gift that Naomi shared with us.
Thank you so much, Tulia, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.